everybody, I am back with Who Was Milton Hersey? We stopped on chapter 3, Success. Along with his secret caramel recipe, Milton had learned something else in his travels. Selling caramels one at a time was nice, but selling them in big batches was better. With one sale to a hotel or restaurant, he could make as much as selling several dozen individuals to customers. He borrowed money from a bank to start a small caramel factory in Lancaster. Milton was soon selling his tasty caramels. Then something amazing happened. Milton got the big break he had been waiting for. A man from England was visiting Lancaster. He tried one of Milton's caramels and loved it. He placed a huge order that had to be delivered to England in 3 months. With such a big order, Milton paid off a bank loan and bought more equipment and ingredients. So Hersey's factory made the order and sent the caramels across the Atlantic Ocean. Milton Hersey was finally a success. The Lancaster Caramel Company boomed. Milton kept experimenting. The caramel got even better. He called it Crystal A Caramel. He sold huge amounts to stores, restaurants, delis, and more. Having his factory in Lancaster taught Hersey a few things about location. First, cows on Lancaster farms provided all the milk that he needed to make caramel. Also, Lancaster itself was near one of the new electric plants, so his factory machines had plenty of power. Railroads connected his factory to the places where the sugar and flavoring came from to make the candy and to the cities where the candy orders were sent. He also relied on the hardworking people who lived in the area. Lancaster was a great place for his caramel company, and Milton Hersey loved making candy. Milton spent hours trying new ways to make caramels. He tried putting nuts in some brands. He tried icing. He even made some caramels that were less expensive, so more folks could afford them. Milton didn't just play the role of boss either. He rolled up his sleeves and mixed caramel in the huge vats too. He wanted to make sure his caramels were the best they could be. By the early 1890s, the company had 2 factories and more than 1,300 workers. Thanks to caramel and hard work, Milton Hersey was soon one of the richest men in Lancaster. He bought a big house for himself and another one for his mother. He also made his first trip to Europe. While in England, he saw that some candy companies were starting to sell chocolate. They were inventing new ways to make chocolate so that it could be easily stored and sold. That got Milton thinking. Chapter 4, Mr. Hersey Goes to Chicago. In 1893, another trip changed Milton's life. That year, he went to Chicago for the World's Columbian Exposition. It was held to celebrate the 400 years since Christopher Columbus had arrived in the New World. For the fair, dozens of new buildings were put in a Chicago park. All were made from wood and white stucco. The fair was nicknamed the White City. There were exhibits from around the world. People could ride in boats on man-made lakes. They tasted new treats, including something called a hamburger. Visitors rode the world's first Ferris wheel. In one building with food exhibits, Milton saw something that made him stop in his tracks. A German candy company had made a temple out of chocolate. It stood 38 feet tall, about as tall as a 4-story building. Hersey was stunned. And in a building with machinery exhibits, there were iron machines clanking and puffing away. The machines were making chocolate. The J.M. Lehman Company from Germany had set up a complete chocolate-making factory right there in the White City. A machine roasted the raw cocoa beans. Another machine ground the roasted beans into powder. Into the powder went sugar and flavoring. Hersey watched the machine for hours. He asked endless questions. He returned again and again, even bringing friends and people from his company to see the machine. Here's a little bit about the history of chocolate. Chocolate is made from the cocoa plant. Cocoa grows on trees in places where it is hot and humid. Scientists call the plant Theobroma cocoa, which means food of the gods. Pods about the size of footballs grow on the trees. Inside each pod are about 30 to 40 cocoa beans that are the size of strawberries. It takes about 350 beans to make 1 pound of chocolate. The ancient Aztecs and Mayas harvested cocoa pods from trees in Central America. They mixed the ground up beans with water to make a bitter but popular drink. The word chocolate comes from exacto, the Aztec word for this drink. In the 1500s, invading Spanish soldiers drank it and disliked it. When it was tried in Spain, the Spanish added sugar or honey. Sweet chocolate was born. Then, in 1847, an English company, J.S. Fry & Sons, found a way to mix cocoa butter and cocoa powder. When it hardened, it was a chocolate bar. Finally, in 1875, Swiss scientists Daniel Peter and Henry Nestle mixed milk with chocolate to make it even creamier. Today, several countries in Africa produce most of the world's cocoa used to make chocolate. The #1 cocoa producing country is Côte d'Ivoire on the west coast of Africa. Cocoa also grows in Ghana, Indonesia, and in South America. Milton's cousin, Frank Snavely, said that Milton told him the caramel business is a fad, but chocolate is something we will always have. Hersey was so convinced of this that he bought every piece of gear that Lindemann had in Chicago. He even ordered more machines from Germany. He took everything back to Lancaster, where Milton set up the new Hersey Chocolate Company in a corner of his caramel factory. As he had with caramel, Milton experimented. The chocolate made by the new German machines was good, but it wasn't perfect. It was still a little bitter. Milton wanted to make milk chocolate, as Nestle had done. Milk chocolate was sweeter and lasted longer than the chocolate available at the time. It could be molded into shapes. It would not melt as quickly as regular chocolate. One big problem? Nestle wouldn't share the secret. Milton returned to his family's first home, which he used as a lab to work out a new chocolate formula. He mixed and poured and sampled and cooked. He tried and tried and tried again. And finally, he got pretty close. Hersey came up with a recipe for a type of milk chocolate. With that recipe in hand, he made a big decision. Milton Hersey decided to sell his caramel company and devote all his energy to chocolate. It was a huge risk, but Hersey was confident that chocolate was the future. We're going to stop there today, and I will see you guys again tomorrow.